eModels.co.uk. Make something awesome.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello gang, Colin here, Festa 67's workshop. Shall we paint our ball tank? Yeah. So, I'll just have a quick move around on the bench. Start getting ready to set me spray booth up. A couple of people have asked to see this little bit because they heard the rumour that my extractor system runs under my bench, and a couple of fellas want to do the same with theirs. So I said I'd film this little bit for them. So I just literally moved me stuff out the way. And then my Bruce Willis that's in the background there, my pen pot, I then lift out the way so that it reveals the container slot for the air hose. So I'll just pull that out the way, like so. See? And if you look in the corner, you'll see the white rectangle. And that's the down tube to put that little bad boy in. See, so that now all fit onto the ring on the back of me spray booth. Now these little spray booths are a godsend, but I haven't got the space to keep it set up permanently like a lot of folks, so I just quickly turn the adapter on the back there, like so, and that will do a round fitment straight into the round adapter even, and that runs under me bench and then up the wall and straight out an air vent on the wall. So yeah, and then on the outside of the wall of the house there's a little louvered vent that this extracts out into the real world. So yeah, that's how that works. So I'll just quickly fit this all together and click it in place, and we'll have a spray booth set up. So yeah, it does make a difference to me because it's nice and small, it's nice and compact, and pretty much does what it says on the tin, if I'm honest. So we'll carry on and just put the sides up and get prepared, and I'm going to be priming on this today. So I'll be prepping a bit of UMP primer, and I'll be putting it through me pistol brush, which is on the cutting mat just there. So we've had to move around to the camera angle for you, just so that you can see what I'm up to. I'll just move the microphone down so that I can talk to you. And there's the bits and bobs already on the cocktail sticks, all the skewers that I'm going to be painting. And these little skewers I made myself. I've got a big bag of clips and a bag of barbecue skewers and sat there with a pair of pliers. Yeah, you guessed the rest. Put the clips on and voila. Saved me a small fortune, it did. So I'll just pop these out of there and lay them all down. And this is all the stuff that is going to get the grey primer on. The other frame that is getting a different colour is just off shot on the left. And that will be getting another layer up in of a different colour. So yeah, so we'll just move that out of the way, and then I'll be putting the bits and pieces in that as I paint them just to the left there. Alright, so we've got a bit of UMP primer in there that I've shaken, and I'm running this at about 14 psi at the moment, just misting the primer on. It's a nice easy flowing primer and does the job. Just drop a little bit of red in there on the frame and get that done. That's a different airbrush there, that's Excalibur, that's a little H&S airbrush. So yeah, you don't need masses and masses of how I spray. It is literally paint in the cup, switch it on and spray it. Sorry about the gratuitous back of my head shot there, folks. But I built this in such a way that I could pop the tyre off once I join the four sections together, so that I can get in and do all the little greebly bits, and then I shall weather this off the tank, get it all weathered and gnarly and chipped and all of that lot, and then it'll all start popping together as a later assembly piece. So I'll grab that on there like so. just finish that off and get all the little crooks and nannies, and then we'll do a deft bit of airbrush cleaning on this stage, ready for the next stage, like so. So something a little bit different here. We had the idea on the eModels live show a couple of weeks ago to do a live at the bench build on this show, and for those watching later, it was the early June show. So this footage was screen captured off of that, and this is the part where I was showing the red part of the internals and the tyre to the viewers, and then I'm going to be painting a light green base over the entire outer shell of the tank, and then this will then be having a layer of chipping fluid over it, and then I'll put in the white top coat that you can see in the picture just to the bottom left there. So it'll go over this green, and then the edges will be chipped and exposed, just to sort of show that it's a white over green paint. So whilst we was doing the live show and goofing around, I did a bit of deft spray in here. I think Fox and Ted, bless them, managed to glue all of 2 pieces together. Me and Chris, like a pair of school swats we are, we were sort of beavering away with the airbrushes or whatever, and so you'll see me now. I'm just going to be deftly going over this with a bit of green paint, so some of the footage is going to be sped up and edited and that, but we're just going over the interior part of the doors there, and like I say, I use little tiny circular motions on this because it is a compound curve, so to speak, so I'm just doing like miniature spirals as I'm painting it, just to try to get paint in every little area there, and then it'll have a mist coat over the top of that just to capture any pieces that I may or may not have missed. So we'll be doing that. Apologies if it's just under my hand there, but I had the iPhone sort of behind me right shoulder, so it was a bit hit and miss what footage I would end up with on this one, but I think you'll see enough of what I'm doing. So I'm just, like I say, doing the little tiny circles round the edges, and then I build into the middle, and then I close off the grey primed area last in the middle there, and then it'll have a little mist over the top, and that'll be painted up then. And that's all we're doing on this one for this this little part of the episode, is just laying down the green base. And it was one of those, we hit on the idea of doing this on the live show sort of pretty last minute, and those of us that had eModels builds grabbed them and got on with them. So apologies for the delay in this episode, but I kind of wanted to voice over everything because we were goofing around like a load of women, and we're a bunch of princesses, us four, when we get together, but it is quite funny. So I'm going to do the same on the inside here, just little circular motions to try to capture all the edges of any frames or mountings or fixings that are inside the tank, the radiator and the fuel tanks, etc. I'll just drop that clip off to hold it there by the shock absorber. And as you remember rightly in the last episode when I showed you how I was doing the guns, all the ball sections will pop in them rings and be held in place quite nicely. So I'm going to put a little worn silver inner ring around them, so it looks like they've worn as the thing's been turning around. You'll probably never see that, but it's like anything, us modelers know it's there, don't we? So again, this is having the green base colour, and then it'll add some chipping effects and bits and detritus and dirt and dust and all of that lot over it, but nothing major. It'll be predominantly on the bottom half of it where the tank operator's feet would have been, So if they've been out and had a quick smoke or whatever in the outside where they've come in and got back in the tank, there's going to be sort of ground detritus, dirt, or a bit of dampness or from snow or whatever, and it will just start eroding the paint surface. So nothing too heavy on the web rim, but just enough. And again, bear in mind there's only going to be one door open on this, so yeah, you're not going to see a lot of it. So, mind you, saying that, I might do both doors open. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. So we'll carry on painting this outer shell section. And when I come to join this, I've got to connect all the radiator pipes, and I've had a look at the instructions, and it does look like a bit of an octopus moment where you need more than two hands, but I might have devised a way of doing it, so I'll have a go and we'll figure that out. But I think I can tape the outer shell on with the tyre off, and then attach the hose one end on the radiator with a bit of the extra fin, let it go off, and then pop the shell off, and the pipe should stay in its place. But again, we'll do the same here, little circular motions all around the outer circumference of this shell there. And it's like anything, because you're doing a compound curve, I just find it easier for myself spraying in this pattern. And yeah, it stops it streaking, and it also stops the paint sort of building up at the lower edge there. I just do little circular motions, and then once the bulk of the area is done, I then mist over everything, and it blends it together quite nicely. So yeah, like I say, we was picking on each other quite mercilessly that night. Predominantly me and Chris ganged up on Fox and Ted, because Ted had just come off the back of doing his own live stream, and he had managed, I think, in an hour and a half to glue two pieces together. So we were mocking him profusely on that one, folks, I'm afraid, but it is quite entertaining. So that's that bit done. Normally I would have me spray booth set up on my bench there that you saw in the first half of this episode, but this was the live broadcast, and I kind of didn't want the big sound of the extractor going, so I muted my microphone in the end and put me respirator on and did it that way. So yeah, hence the voiceover. So we'll do the same on this one. Little circular motions right round the bottom edge there, and just keep popping it around. And remember, if you are using this technique, put the lid on your airbrush pot, because yeah, it can spill out. But I've got very minimal paint in mine at the moment. I tend to, when I'm doing these, just put a tiny little bit of paint in as I need it, but the lid still goes on. It just stops any accidents. But again, like I say, the circular motions there, all the way around. Get myself caught up in my arrows there, and then just drop that round there. And then I've got all the ammunition to paint and that as well, so I shall get that painted later on in this episode. Get the paint brushes out and the wet palette, and we can sit and do a bit of nice quiet brush painting. And for those of you that haven't made a wet palette, I'll quickly go over when I do that piece on how I made me wet palette, and yeah, comes in handy. So that's what we'll be doing on that, and it will just let us get some of the detail in. But for the moment, getting the base green down is what we want to achieve on this. And I actually didn't think I'd manage to get all of this done on the live show, because it did degenerate somewhat, and yeah, we may have misbehaved. Sorry, Peter. Just quickly clean the tip off my airbrush there. Lovely. And that's the beauty of these ones. They've got a pinch tip on them, so you can just run your fingers down there and get any paint off. But yeah, I was getting a bit of tip dry on it because, as you can see, you keep stopping because you're chatting to Fox or Chris or the viewers or whatever, and you're like, yeah. But yeah. So we'll just carry on with this, and I think someone was asking the question about the airbrush there, what airbrush it was, and it was a harder and Steenback Infinity. So yeah, we can get on with that. Just grab the other bits and bobs and bring them a bit closer because they'll be getting a coat any minute. So we'll just give that a little increase of pressure because I've been chatting. So we'll carry on and get this finished, like so. There's a little bit of spray in there, a little bit on the edges there, just a quick mist round on there. Hey, lovely jubbly. Have you some of that? So I'll just put that in the pot, stop that falling over, and we'll grab some of the little bits now, and we'll start hopefully speeding through them if I can just put a little bit more paint in, I think. Have a little looky-loo. Yeah. And then we've got the door done now. So let's just grab that. Just a couple of little bits there I've spotted that just need a little second coat over them. Just to capture the edges. Yeah, there you go. I'm happy now. It's just where it's on the left there, I just caught the light and it just showed a little bit of the primer still in a couple of areas. So it was handy just to sit there and let the paint start drying, and you've got the stuff just to one side of you, and you can spot then any areas that you may have missed as the paint is drying. So that's why we tend to sort of do a few mist coats and bits and bobs. And then what I'll do on this now, see, is I can get the airy stick out and just start doing a bit of, I would say light dry brushing, but I'm going to go quite heavy on some of this just to get a chunk of silver down, and then I shall go back over it with some of the red and dry brush the red on top of the silver, just to give that illusion of wear. It's a bit of a Heath Robinson way of doing it, I know, but it's just, it works for me. There's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. So I'm just going to go around some of the engine sections and things like that, and some of the posts and chair edges, and as Ted would say, we'll slap it on, and
Slap it on.
Yeah, cheers Ted, and get that sorted out. Come around the edges of the frames like that. And again, this red is the red oxide undercoat of the top coat of the tank, which is again going to be a variant of the green. So you're not going to see all of the red poking through, it's just going to be bits and pieces of it. But yeah, so there's going to be various different steel colours and things on there where bits and pieces have been painted. The engine might have been painted a slightly different colour and that. So, but as a base coat, it was just nice to put a red oxide primer down, or the illusion of a red oxide, and then all the other different paint call outs can go over the top of it, and that's all going to be brush painted on. But I want to put a complete layer of chipping fluid on all of this before I do the top coat, then that way I can go back in and then activate it with water in the places that I want to chip paint off. So hence why I'm not too worried about being too heavy with the silver dry brushing, because it's not the finished layer, it's sort of underneath. So that's what we're trying to achieve anyway. Or yeah, having a go at trying to achieve then, should we say, Festa. Yeah, so we'll carry on with that. we'll just slather some of that around the chair area, around the edges of the frame where the tyre's going to be rubbing, and get that on there. And I'm tempted to try and 3D print some figures for this, so that there's some activity going on, people sat in there. So I need to work on that and get that sorted. So there will be a little session on that coming up, because I think it needs a little bit of life around it. It's going in a diorama anyway in the woods, so you wouldn't have a tank without any crew in the middle of the woods, I would have thought. So I'm going to need to do something just to try to bring it to life or tell its story. And this is going to go back to the guys at eModels. So I'm aware with with Ted doing his sub before, and now he's doing his Titanic, and Fox is doing a big Falcon. Poor old Pete's going to be short of space up there. So this will probably go on a little A4 size dio, just to try to keep it as compact as I can. I might even go smaller with the dio yet. I haven't finally decided on the dimensions. I'll have a look at the tank and look at how big the finished article is, and I'll put it on the cutting mat on a sheet of paper, and then I'll look at it and go, right, okay, let's think a diorama, and try and keep something within proportion but also compact enough that Pete ain't got to worry about masses of space. So I'm just putting, believe it or not, I'm putting a little bit of silver down on a rubber tyre for a reason. It's just where the two surfaces would meet, perhaps you would get a little bit of silver paint coming off or whatever, but yeah. And then I'm going and back over that with a bit of tyre black, just to give that effect there. So again, once this is dry, I'm then going to go over the tyre with some chipping fluid and stipple it with the same white that the tank outer's painted with, but I'm going to have it worn off, because obviously a rubber track with paint, it's going to literally peel off. But where they've painted it in the field, they literally painted everything, because yeah, they might have had a bit too much of the Russian vodka. Been a little bit drunk, so yeah. So I'm just going to slather the paint across the treads of this tyre, like so. Get that done, so that can go out of the way. And then let's have a little looky-loo as to what we got there. A little bit of clear coat. Yeah, and then we can go back over now with a bit more of the brushed aluminium, and I'll stipple that on the tea towel there. Yeah, I know it's the world's scuzziest tea towel, but it's not as scuzzy as Paul Stewart's cutting mat. But yeah, I'll just use a little bit of tea towel, and I'll just quickly go over the pulleys and the leading edge, give it a rub with me thumb, just to create a little excuse me, a little wear pattern where the tyre's been rubbing against it. But this is at a coat of pledge between the red and the second layer of silver, just so that it can get in the nooks and crannies, so to speak. So we'll just slather some of that over there. And the beauty of doing this is it captures all the little bolt heads at different angles and stuff like that, so it just gives everything a little bit of edge wear, because you know they might have had the spanners out and had to unchange a pulley or something like that, so you're going to have paint ripped off of the bolt heads where the spanners have been put on. And yeah, obviously the soldiers climbing up the tubing to get into their seats, you're going to have footwear on the edges of the tube in each side of the chair, and if they've worked on the engine, you're going to have sort of tool marks and scratches and all of that. So hence why when I made it, I built the 4 sections of the tyre on the model, but I'd done it in such a way that it still turned, and then when everything had cured, it enabled me to pop this inner ring back out so that I could do what I'm doing now, all the paint. So if you are building it, just bear that in mind. You might think it's strange how Festa Pops is doing it, but this stage has made it so much easier for me, and it will do for you, because you'll be able to get in whilst wearing your Optivisor, and you'll be able to detail paint everything. And yeah, because I thought about doing it by painting everything first, then trying to do the tyre, but I thought trying to lose the seams around the areas where you've got paint, you're still gonna have trouble blending it. So I thought I'd try it this way and see how it goes, and I'm going to do it exactly the same way when I build my next ball tank. So yeah, it worked for me. So try it, have a look in the previous episode, and you'll see me putting the tyre on with the elastic band. And bear in mind, all you want to do is you just want to keep turning the inner frame so that it keeps moving, and then as the glue goes off, it won't stick to the tank, see. And yeah, you'll then be able to pop the ring out. But give it a couple of days before you pop the ring out. I know the glue dries quick, but I left it 48 hours anyway, just to let everything be super dry and cooked into place, so to speak. And then you just want to lightly start popping the ring, and it'll pop out from the top first, and then it'll want to spin round. Let it spin round so that you've then got the inner ring at 90 degrees to the tyre, and then you just put your thumb on the engine block, give it a press, and it will pop straight out. And it enables you then to do what I'm doing now, which is getting all the little bars, the pulleys and all of that, and weather the hell out of it. Bearing in mind you're only going to be looking at this through an 1.5 inch opening, but yeah, we know it's there. And that's the beauty of this hobby, is, you know, we do all of this detail work, and probably most of it's not going to be seen by the guy at the counter who's waiting for eModels to bring his model to him. He's going to glimpse down and see it and go, oh look, there's that ball tank that bald-headed bloke built. Whereas, like I say, there might be one or two armour builders that will see the doors open. Oh, I'll just have a quick look in there. Oh yeah, I'll see what he's done there. So yeah, you know, and they might even ask the guy serving them, oh, can you just pop that out so I can have a look at it? And yeah, so they'll be able to have a closer inspection of Festa's rather decent work, I hope. Excuse me. So we'll just quickly do the last leading edge of that, and then I'm going to let this dry for a little bit, change me setup a little bit, and dig out my wet palette, and we'll come back with a bit of detail brushing, I think, because I'm looking out the corner of my eye at the radiator there, knowing that that's got to be done in steel and a few bits and pieces, and I want to go in and do the pulleys and wear them down. So I'll probably give this another coat of clear to protect this layer from the next layer. So I'll be doing a few gloss coats here and there on a few areas where I know I'm going to be doing another layer, and that's just my own preference there. So we're just literally flicking this now at the edges of the frame, so I'm going to just get into that little piece there, and then we'll call the silver done. Just rub that little bit off there, Festa. We're a little too mad. But again, I'll be flicking bits of red, bits of silver, bits of red, bits of silver, just to try and look as if it's been touched up, painted over the years, and they've gone and scratched it again. So it's just to trick the eye into maintenance has been done, and it all tells a story, doesn't it? Not approvingly. There you go. Yeah, you know it makes sense. Yeah, so we can just pop that over there out the way. And is there anything else that could do with a little flick? Not really. So we'll clean this, and then we'll come back with the wet palette. See you in a minute. Right, we'll start a bit of dry brushing now on the inner frame. So I'm going to put a bit of aluminium on the engine block there. Now this is model colour aluminium, it's one of their metal colour dropper bottle paints, and I'm just putting this on as a base at the moment on the engine just to get something on there, and then I'll probably go over it with aluminium pigment just to give it a bit more of a metal finish, so to speak. So this is just a base coat, so it's going to have a few brush strokes in it here and there, but I'm not worried about that because it could create sort of texture, scratches, that sort of thing. So I'm going to leave them in there, and then when I put the pigment on top, hopefully that will then settle in a few places and just give me them undulations I want in the engine finish. So a few of the wheels are going to have some of this on them as well in a few places. So again, when I rub some of the pigment powder off, you'll have some lighter tones of aluminium showing through. So I'm just going to randomly pick out little bits and pieces around this bolt heads, wear areas where perhaps feet have climbed up on beams and rubbed paint and texture off over time. So there's going to be quite a few layers of different things going on, and you know, this is where your fingers come in handy, because you can put a paint on and then you can quickly rub across it and your fingerprint will leave a few grooves, lines, lands, or whatever you want to call them in the texture, and it just adds a little bit of feel to the paint. So that's all we're going to be doing on these, and yeah, it's really therapeutic. I find you just sit there with a wet palette and your paint brushes, and you just start going round, almost getting to know the model in a kind of strange way. That's how I think about it. I mean, we build them and we tend to slather the paint on with an airbrush, and pretty much you don't have a close-up feel for the kit. But I find when you sit there with a bit of a wet palette going on and some detail brushes and your Optivisor, yeah, you kind of get to know the kit again, and yeah, you begin to feel it almost. I think a lot of modelers can relate that. You begin to feel a build coming in, taking shape, and you form this bond with it, and that's the stage we're at now. I'm just getting to know this one, and I've bought it a few martinis, and I'm painting a bit on the engine and showing it a bit of TLC, and beginning to get a vibe for it. So we'll be playing around with the brush painting for the remainder of this episode. I'm getting some of these little bits done, ready for when I put on the chipping fluids and things like that in the next episode for some of the top coat. So kind of want to get some of this done, and we'll see what we end up with at the end of the episode as to how far we get with it. And then obviously if I need to do any more sort of touch-up detail work with a brush, then I'll inject that into the videos as we go along, just to break it up a little bit. But this is that sort of painty stage now. I've finally sort of settled on my diorama idea, so I'm getting my bits together for that. So hopefully we can dedicate an episode to the build-up of the diorama, and then we'll do some painting, weathering, and cobble the tank on the diorama, and see what we come up with. I'm still playing with figures. I've got some ideas of what I want. It's just getting them. So I'm just gonna quickly put a little bit of aluminium in some areas of the pipe, and then that will be the stuff that shows through when I buff the pastes off. So I'll probably put paste on shortly for the radiator and the cowling and things like that. So just finish that off with a little bit of aluminium there, just around the areas I think where I mean, you would open the door, you would grab the pipe to almost use it as a handle to get yourself in and out the side of the tank. So I can imagine if they've had gloves on or rings on or anything like that on their fingers, then you know that would have scratched the pipe and bright aluminium start showing through. So we'll clean the brush off and then we'll dig out some pigments. So I'll have them just to me left there, and I'll be dipping the brush in randomly and putting them in, but they're little agama pigments that I use just for this stage, in case people are wondering. I'm going to chip an eModels email to see whether they'll start stocking them, because they are nice little pigments. There are other equivalents there, but these are what I've got to hand at the moment, and they're just something I thought would emphasise the build a little bit for me. And yeah, so I'm just going to go around the edges of the cowling like so. Just come around the face of it like that and let that start drying, and then I'll go in and do the matrix with the same, and then I can highlight that with a panel wash later on in the build when I weather the fan blades and the edges of the cowling. But this is just to get the pigment on, let it dry, and then I can go at it with a cotton bud and start polishing it up, because it gives me a nice metal finish. I mean, this is a burnished steel that I'm putting on, and it's almost like a brown steel or an anodized steel. You know, it's just got some colours that come through once you start buffing them up, and they are reasonably realistic. So I thought I would go that little bit extra for them, because you know they're good guys, the eModels team, and I wanted to just put a little bit of TLC into it. So we've got that coming along nicely, as you can see. So we might as well put some of this down as a base on the suspension legs as well, because there'll be some chipping fluid going over it, and the white top coat will go on, and then I'm going to chip it away to expose this metal finish in a few places. And I'll probably do the same with the grill vents as well. I'll probably put some of this on them, so that again I can go at the grill vents with the brushes and cocktail sticks when I've put the chipping on, and chip it off and expose this again. So that's kind of why these are getting a full larrapin at the moment. Like I say, bits of paint will be coming off where it's knocked and chipped, and yeah. And again, I'm just flicking the brush at it just to give it a bit of scratch texture, and yeah, because the bristle lines actually do make good scratches on these things. So yeah. And I know they're a what-if build, these little ball tanks, but I would love it if they had existed. The fun you could have in one of these, especially in the modern age, because there are a lot of people that collect armour. You know, there's enthusiasts and museums and places like that. But you know, imagine it, belting round Tank Fest in a ball tank. It'd be a right laugh, wouldn't it? Oh mate, you know, you'd be gunning along with the door open with me pork pie hat on in camo, giving it the old, you want some? Yeah, I need to take the blue pill again, I think. Anyway, we'll get a bit more on this leg and get that weathered. Yeah, and start putting that around the posts there and the fittings on the ski mount. And I should be doing the same on the skis as well. The skis themselves were wooden, but there are metal brackets on there and things like that, so they'll get a little bit of pigment on them, just so that then when you scratch the paint off, it exposes the wooden structure of the skis as well as bits and pieces of the metal. So Just gives it a bit of a weathered look. Do the same on the shock absorber mounts, like so. There you go. Another one bites the dust. And the eagle-eyed of you would have noticed that that piece I held up just now had some guns in it as well, because I just wanted to test fit the guns on one of the halves just to see how they went together, and then I shall shortly film the next one just so that you can see how the guns went in and were assembled. But I just wanted to do a little test run just for my own benefit, because not knowing the construction of it greatly, I just wanted to see how easy they went together for filming purposes. So I'll just give the locking bars a coat of the pigment as well as the central handle there, like so. And again, they'll have a little bit of paint on top of them and chipping and stuff like that. So, and then probably do the grab handle as well whilst I'm there. A couple of bits on the edge. Look at that. Let's put the clip on the edge of that one. And we'll do the same on this as well. And it just gives a little bit of definition to a couple of the pieces, and that'll have a coat of like a very sort of dull whole red colour over it, and that'll be chipped off, just exposing the metal that I'm putting on now. Same with the hinges. It's just to give the guys inside a means of seeing the quick means of escape if something did go wrong. You know, they've got a nice big red handle there that they can turn, and yeah. So let's have a look. Bung a bit more detail on some of these pulleys, plates on the metal. Same with the sump covers, the brake pads here. They could do with a anodized finish, so we might as well just go round and start picking out these little details at this stage, because it will then start drying off and you can cobble a look out of one eye at it, and as you're doing something else, you know, you might look at it and go, oh, that could just do with something there, because yeah. So I tend to go backwards and forwards between these bits and bobs, if I'm honest, but just give the old linkages a bit of a dust. Come underneath probably and look at doing the engine sump, probably the rocker covers as well, get them to have a coat. And it's a little fiddly, but when I first built it I kind of thought I would leave it all red, but I had a bit of a change of mind midway through this build. So if you are going to highly paint your engine in different colours, you might want to do it before you put it in the frame. But me being me, I thought, yeah, I'm just going to leave it red oxide the whole lot, and then yeah, Festa changed his mind, didn't he, and made it unnecessarily difficult for himself. So I'll just give this a good old going over with a bit of metal, because then it'll be misted with an olive drab paint and then chipped. See, so it'll again expose a lot of the metal underneath. So there is a plan to all of this. So yeah, it's basically they've been instructed by their commanding officer to neaten everything up because they're getting visited. So they've had a couple of tins of olive drab about and they've slathered it on, and of course the paint's heated up and peeled back off again. So that's the story to the interior anyway. Works for me. But that's the beauty of these what if builds, because it's your kit, you know, and at the end of the day you can paint it whatever you like, because they didn't exist, you've got this almost artistic license of creativity that you can throw at these. And that's why I like these ball tanks, and a few people that have been watching these series of builds that I've been doing on this have since gone out and bought their own and started PMing me, asking me how the build's coming along and what stage they're at. And you know, if anyone else is building one, you know, PM me, chuck me some pics. I love to see your work, and hopefully, you know, you're enjoying the build series. And at the end of this episode, there'll be a list of consumables that I'm using on this build that have been kindly donated by eModels, who this show's for, and this build series is for, should I say. So if you're not sure what paints I'm using, when the video ends, it'll flash up on screen all the paint numbers and colours that I'm using on this build. So if you want to build the same, then that's just something I've thrown in on the end of the video there, so that you folks can grab some consumables and build along with me. So we'll just give this a little dust over to try and pick out some of the edges, and I'm just flicking the brush across the surface, just catching the edges randomly, and it just leaves a very fine wispy deposit of paint, and it seems to work for me on these certainly. So we'll just do a bit of that, and then we'll put some in the centre of these pulleys, and these will have a wash put in them when they're dry, which will then pick out any detail pieces. So we're getting to that stage where things need to start drying, so I'm going to wrap up now and just have a little finish up at the bench here. But again, have a look at the end of the video for the consumables that we need to complete these builds. Pop along to eModels, have a looky-loo at what they've got in store there. If you want to grab a ball tank whilst you're there, do so. The list of consumables is coming up, so have a look at those, add them to your shopping list. They're a great crew of people. Things have started to return back to normal now, because the world is no longer on fire to the degree it was a few weeks back. They will email you when your orders have been dispatched, so give them a little bit of time, or a little more time than perhaps normally would, but they have been really prompt. I've had orders come through promptly. So until the next episode, stay home, stay safe, keep well, and I'll see you shortly. Bye bye for now.